Crime and Punishment is an interesting story that challenges readers to think twice about, crime and punishment. Fyodor Dostoevsky dictated the novel originally to his wife, who wrote it down in the 1800s. Dostoevsky himself was a political prisoner in Russia, which may or may not have inspired the criminal justice focus of the novel. Dostoevsky's novel is a great way of becoming acquainted with 19th century culture, as a lot of the conversations in the novel seem contemporaneous and endlessly philosophical. The story revolves around a protagonist named Raskolnikov. He commits a double murder and is soon hounded by police who rightly suspect that he is guilty of the crimes, but they do not have a lot of evidence against him. The main policeman in charge of resolving the case is a cunning and astute investigator who somehow recognizes Raskolnikov as being the guilty party, but has not been able to pull together enough evidence to prove this. You could say that Raskolnikov commits a perfect crime, but he cannot deal with the paranoia and guilt that comes next. Crime and Punishment welcomes readers into a duplicitous and morally ambiguous world, where police manipulate and psychologically torture suspects into confessions. The chief suspect, Raskolnikov, is repeatedly hounded and toyed with during interrogations by the main investigator in the novel. Raskolnikov himself does not handle this experience very well. He rails against Porfiry, the main investigator, because of the latter's intent to get him to confess to the crime, because that's the only way to book him. Porfiry counters this assault by reminding Raskolnikov that he can essentially do whatever he wants, as long as the officer keeps up appearances that he's not actually doing anything wrong to the suspect. This only infuriates Raskolnikov more because he understands that he is being prodded but cannot react too strongly at that notion. The important parallels between Crime and Punishment in the modern day are multitudinous. A non-policed police force is a threat to civil liberties, a theme that Dostoevsky highlights in Raskolnikov's volleys of Porfiry's pressure tactics. Raskolnikov's character is a lawyer and adept at advocating for his own rights. Dostoevsky really wanted to stir an intellectual debate from his Crime and Punishment novel because it shows so many angles of the multifaceted after effects of a crime. Eventually, Raskolnikov is convicted, spoiler alert, because he confesses and gets sent to Siberia. Dostoevsky dictated a fairly large book, but it remains engaging and great law and literature material for students in schools, as the outcomes raise some important questions. How do we screen testimony in our own lives? People hear testimony every day, from acquaintances, friends, and family. Personal accounts from people are part of the everyday, and it's hard to avoid them, unless you're a hermit. So, how do you know who is telling the truth? Or a lie for their own convenience, or inconvenience, as is the case with false confessions? Some philosophers think that while not easy, it is important to screen testimony as much as possible. Others say, give it the benefit of the doubt. The problems with dealing with testimony, of course, is exacerbated in the courtroom. False testimonies happen all of the time as witnesses lie either to shield themselves or others, and tragically there is the phenomena of false confessions. Some suspect that false confessions are the result of police pressure and scare tactics. Police interrogation tactics have even been compared with those used by the US during the Korean War. What's obvious is that in those instances when a witness, suspect, or person of interest is interrogated by police, measures are taken to not inspire a false confession.
Good.